do whatever it takes to get yourself out of the way, because the judgment, the discounting, the pattern behavior, the habitual behavior that you've been running your whole life, what a waste, sweetheart. It's so unnecessary. And this is an opportunity to leave that behind. Don't waste any more time on this habituated, unresourceful thinking.
Hey everybody, Jason Schneider here, founder of the Perception Academy, and I'm really excited to have on Madeleine Robinson today. She is a meta coach, a Neuro Semantics trainer, a meta coach trainer, and from what I know about Madeleine, she's really passionate about working with coaches and actually coaching herself. I think that's something you'll get to know. And so while I'm interviewing her, I think that you'll probably be able to pull out at least a couple of nuggets for yourself in terms of improving your life, applying NLP, neurosemantics coaching skills in your day-to-day. And at the very least, you'll enjoy meeting Madeleine. So welcome, Mads.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. It's lovely to reconnect with you, Jason. We've spent a lot of time together in our trainings and so forth, and lovely to meet all of you too who are watching the video.
For sure. I think we met the first time, I think it was in Bali, Indonesia. Is that right?
Yeah, you were my team leader for NSTT.
So
a hard taskmaster, folks, for those of you that are considering NSTT, but wonderful support.
100%. And then most recently, I think we were in Sydney at the Meta Coach training, where you became a certified Meta Coach trainer, which is a big feat to achieve. So congratulations on that.
It was a work in progress that took a number of years of shadowing under Michael, and it was such a privilege and honor to do that through that period of time, and to actually reach the certification of Meta Coach trainer was amazing. But more to that, actually co-facilitating with Michael over those years was such an honor for me, and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for those people who aren't necessarily familiar with the neurosemantics pathway, it's not just you get a certificate for paying your fees and keeping a chair warm. It takes years and years of effort to actually reach certain levels. So
years of effort and years of feedback and applying feedback and embodying feedback and going back and finessing. And so it was a wonderful experience.
So I think that's actually maybe a good place to start with the interview today, because speaking of the power of feedback, I know in my experience developing in my NLP career and early on, and then later on working with Michael Hall as well, and going through maybe the Meta Coach training and the trainer's training and receiving feedback. How was that experience for you? And what would you say to someone who maybe has never experienced that before about the power of that and the experience?
So for me, the experience of receiving feedback initially when I was, first timer going through the training, without a doubt, I had myself in the way. And so when I received feedback initially, even though it was framed, even though I was supported that there's no such thing as feedback, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback, I had my own frames and my own stories running. So, of course, I personalised the feedback and started judging myself. And it was a real game changer when I started to really operate under that presupposition that there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. And then when I could really start to operate that way and understand that if I can just take this little bit of feedback, take it to my next session, embody it, apply what I've received, it was a game changer. And the realization for me that nothing was personal, had no impact on who I was as a human being. It was just a screenshot of what I was doing in the moment. It was what changed my coaching and training.
I would say the exact same thing for me. That's what I always tell my clients and my students, is that the moment that I was able to, of course, in the beginning, that feedback kind of stings a little bit. You're going, someone's watching me, or they're judging me, and these kinds of frames of mind, or it's about me, or I'm not good enough, all that kind of stuff comes up in the beginning. But the moment that I shifted that as well, I had the same experience that it became a big life-changing, shift in myself that allowed me to accelerate my personal. I think feedback is just such an accelerator for growth.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a lovely frame I've just heard you share. And I think it's necessary to go through the pain of personalising it. NLP, apply to self first. So it's an opportunity for us to really start to do our own work and to experience that sting as you referenced. Is a good opportunity, a good indicator to say, hey, what work's really required for me on the inside to be the most effective coach.
And so I really I can't stress or punctuate that so much how important that is to actually open yourself to receive feedback and how that can be fuel for growth. And so you brought up here applying to self, which is a huge another shift. I think that I learned when I first learned NLP, I was more wanting to be the practitioner, right? So I wanted to, if we had those coaching duos or trios, I was like, oh, I can coach more. No, I don't need the time to receive it. And so, I don't know if you had that same experience, but learning to apply the skills and tools to yourself has been, a big shift for me.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I was probably the other way. I had a lot of frames around, I'll take a back seat. I don't want to get found out that I shouldn't be here. I had some frames around, I'm just a mom. I don't know things, and so I remember my first ACMC as a student. I didn't ask one question because I didn't want to sound stupid. And so that really occurred for me. And so applying to self was really about looking at the self-imposed limitations, some of the belief structures, that some of the frames of reference, the movies I was playing in mind were really limiting me. And the realization that I had the power to choose how I wanted to show up. And so that's what made a huge difference as I started to do some of that work around shifting beliefs, reframing some of my thinking, and applying to self, and being that example made such a difference for me as a human being.
Yeah. And so I'm wondering, for someone who's watching, what would be maybe an advice that you could give them in terms of how could they apply NLP in their day-to-day life, or neurosemantics or coaching skills with themselves to maybe shift a frame of mind?
Yeah. Well, I think the simple thing is to really inquire, and awareness is curative, right? So the more you can become aware as to what's really running behind, what's really going on for you, and that might be simply reflecting when you experience, I often share with people, what's the hook about, what's happening here. There's a real opportunity to inquire and to start to become objective to your subjective, and as awareness can create change just on its own. So inquire.
Yeah, inquire, take time to reflect on yourself and your thinking and your patterns, and really great tip there. And so, yeah. Yeah, right. So when you have most of those times these things are running kind of subconsciously. So just simple questions to inquire: what movies am I running right now? What belief is driving this response right now?
Well, interestingly, just as we chat about that, I look up on my wall in front of my laptop, and I've got a little Post-it note that sat there for about 8 years, and it says, "What do you need to stop telling yourself that's not true?"
That's a bit of a mind twist there. Oh, yeah. What do you need to stop telling yourself that's not true? And anybody who's watching this in a replay, feel free to pause this and inquire for the next, 1 to 10 years, minutes, and to really let that get in there. What do you need to stop telling yourself?
It's like, do I need to keep playing this movie, or do I want to just create a new one?
And so, and just being able to have that level of self-awareness to drive the that choice point to make that executive decision. And so, well, one of the things you mentioned you were passionate about is the axes of change model. You want to, I think a lot of people watching this, we're about a 50-50 split. Some will have an idea what that is. Some of them won't. Maybe you could give a quick, brief introduction as to what that is and why it's important.
Really? Yeah, sure. I've really jumped into the axes of change recently to get really immersed myself in it, because ultimately as coaches, we're change agents, right? We're facilitating change in the people we're working with. And so I started to really delve into how the axes of change model works. What are the key variables that are involved in change, and looking at the four key variables of emotion. Is there enough energy in terms of motivating this client, moving towards what they're really passionate about, what their vision is, or are they averse enough? Have I challenged them enough to want to move away from the pain points? And so is there enough of this key variable of emotion? And so my frame, I'll say to myself, is the client's engine running?
I love that.
And then the decision axis of, is there enough clarity for my client? Have I probed, have I provoked enough to create enough clarity for my client to get really clear to make a decision? Yeah, and then the creation, or like, have we got enough creativity running in for the creation axis for this change to occur? Have we formulated, and so it's a beautiful experience to be part of that and facilitating. And then, is there enough embodiment of the change for the client to fully integrate this into their lives? And so created, with Michael's guidance, I've created a masterclass series where we're running these axes of change and really pulling apart each axis and putting all of the principles of change. One of the principles I'm really passionate about and I hold in mind is change doesn't happen unless you're a customer.
So explain that a little bit. Can you unpack that? Change doesn't happen unless you're a
customer of change, unless your client's like going, I'm in this, I'm committed to this, I'm all in. Change isn't going to occur. And so, it's from a quote. It's in Michael's book, Coaching Change. I can't remember who it's from, but it really resonated with me. And it's like, is my client a customer of change right now?
And that's one of the things I loved about the axes of change is that, it's not a model. There's change models. I think one of the things that Michael talks about in that book, Coaching Change, I believe it's called, is about the old change models. So before the axes of change, most of the change models were more therapeutic models, working with people who would relapse and so now taking this axis of change model and making it for people who are bought into the change. Have they really are these self-actualizing people who are change embracers buying into the change, customers of the change? It's a different way of thinking about things and a different way of working with people.
Yeah. So for anyone that's watching this interview, like, really get into that axis. We do it briefly. We spend, I think a day where we play with the wheel, and then we do some coaching for it, 2 sessions for it, but we never really get past the motivation and the decision given our time constraints. And so for those that are curious about change for themselves and the people, I'd really encourage it. The meta programs that are at play that occur in terms of change as well. So I'm thoroughly enjoying that at the moment.
Really awesome to hear, and definitely there's opportunities for people to go deeper with that in multiple ways, checking out the book and of course checking out Mad's website and learning about her. What would you say to someone? Let's say you were talking to, how long have you been approximately practicing now? Let's say since you took your first prac.
2010, 2011, I think, 2011.
Awesome. And so let's imagine that you're talking to Mads 2011, and what advice would you give her from now? Like if she's just getting started out, what would be one thing that you could tell her that would really get her on the right track and keep her aligned?
Enjoy the ride. I'd say that.
That's a great one.
Enjoy the confusion, right? Like, and I'd say, welcome in confusion, because confusion is a prerequisite for learning. And so if you're confused, that is fabulous. It means you're learning. I think that would be a key piece of advice, rather than Mads back in 2011. And do whatever it takes to get yourself out of the way, because the judgment, the discounting, the pattern behavior, the habitual behavior that you've been running your whole life, what a waste, sweetheart. It's so unnecessary. And this is an opportunity to leave that behind. Don't waste any more time on this habituated, unresourceful thinking. That would be the key bit of advice I would give her.
I love that. And so we're getting, say it again.
That's a great question. Well, it's really, thank you for asking me that.
Awesome. And I really appreciate that answer. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from that. And so we're getting towards the end here. I'm wondering, before we wrap up, any final words to share with people, the watchers, the listeners, any final words to share with them today?
I think it's a fabulous concept that you've created, Jason, that we can connect with each other. We're in a, we live in a world that technology allows that. And so, don't hesitate to reach out to me, connect with me, say hi. We're all on the same path. We're all committed to unleashing, our own potential and the potential of other people and creating real change. And so, thanks for the opportunity. And hopefully you've watched all of this interview, and I'd love to connect with you just to say hello.
Awesome. And I encourage that. I think that one of the great things that I've gotten from the Neuro-Semantics community over my years is, on top of the skills and all that kind of stuff, is the network and the amazing friends and times that we share together. And so definitely reach out to Mads, have a virtual coffee, a virtual tea, depending on what time zone you're in. What is it? A virtual wine, right? Depending on your time zone, or a real wine. And
sure, a real one.
And I really appreciate you coming on. And so, if anybody's interested in finding more about you, where can they reach out? Where can they find you?
Well, I have a website. So it's madeleinerobinson.com.au. Nice and simple to remember. And you can reach me there. You can reach me at coach@madeleinerobinson.com.au via email. You can reach me through Facebook anyway. And any way it comes, happy to say hello.
Awesome. And I'll share all that information here around the video so people can easily click there. And so I really appreciate you coming on. I look forward to the next time we cross paths virtually and of course, in person.
Hopefully in person sooner than later. Yes.
I agree 100%. So have a great rest of your day. I'm going to have a wonderful night, and take care, everybody watching. Hope you found some value.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.